Okay, everyone knows the song. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Prajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Prajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parujikacharya Ashtottara Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parujikacharya Ashtottara Sri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Well, I must admit, I have no idea where we are. This thing was in a completely wrong place. Let's see. Okay, well, we passed this. Definitely did this. Were you here on Wednesday? On Wednesday. All right, what was the last verse we did? I think, yeah, we went through these. I'm getting near the end here. I don't know if we did 65. Oh, we did this thing about the wind carrying the boat, blowing the boat about, one of the senses? Balaram was the last one? Oh, Wednesday. Okay, that's why I don't know. Okay. Oh, you did Apurimanam too? Didn't do that. All right. We'll do text 70 on page 134. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 6th day of November 2023 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in the second chapter, contents of the Gita summarized, text 70 on page 134. Oh, you said we did that one already? Okay. Apuyamanam Achala Patishtam Samudram Apa Pravishanti Yadvat Tadvat Kama Yam Pravishanti Sarve Sashantim Apnoti Nakamakami Apuryamanam achalapatishtam Samudramapak pravishanti yadvat Tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve Sashantim apnoti nakamakami Apuryamanam achalapatishtam Samudramapak pravishanti yadvat Tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve Sashantim apnoti nakamakami. Page 134. Apuyamanam achalapatishtam Samudramapak pravishanti yadvat Tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve Sashantim apnoti nakamakami. You see it, Dharma? Text 70 and you want to try it? Apuyamanam achalapatishtam Samudramapat pravishanti yadvat Tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve Sashantim apnoti nakamakami. Apuyamanam achalapatishtam Samudramapak pravishanti yadvat Tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve Sashantim apnoti nakamakami. Vrindavan, you want to try? Haribo? You want to try? Page 134. Apuryamanam achalapatishtam Samudramapa pravishanti yadvat Tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve Sashantim apnoti nakamakami. Apuyamanam achalapatishtam Samudramapat pravishanti yadvat Tadvat kamayam pravishanti sarve tashantim apnoti na kama kami. Anyone online? You want to try? Not yet. Okay. Apuyamanam, always being filled. Achala pratishtam, steadily situated. Samudram, the ocean. Apaha, waters. Prabhashanti, enter. Yadvat, as. Tadvat, so. Kamaha, desires. Yam, unto whom. Prabhashanti, enter. Sarve, all. Saha, that person. Shantim, peace. Apnoti, achieves. Na, not. Kamakami, one who desires to fulfill desires. Translation. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. Purport. Although the vast ocean is always filled with water, it is always, especially during the rainy season, being filled with much more water. But the ocean remains the same, steady. It is not agitated, nor does it cross beyond the limit of its brink. That is also true of a person fixed in Krishna consciousness. As long as one has the material body, the demands of the body for sense gratification will continue. The devotee, however, is not disturbed by such desires because of his fullness. A Krishna conscious man is not in need of anything because the Lord fulfills all his material necessities. Therefore, he is like the ocean, always full in himself. Desires may come to him like the waters of the rivers that flow into the ocean, but he is steady in his activities, and he is not even slightly disturbed by desires for sense gratification. That is the proof of a Krishna conscious man, one who has lost all inclinations for material sense gratification, although the desires are present. Because he remains satisfied in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he can remain steady like the ocean and therefore enjoy full peace. Others, however, who want to fulfill desires even up to the limit of liberation, what to speak of material success, never attain peace. The fruit of workers, the salvationists, and also the yogis who are after mystic powers are all unhappy because of unfulfilled desires. But the person in Krishna consciousness is happy in the service of the Lord, and he has no desires to be fulfilled. In fact, he does not even desire liberation from the so-called material bondage. The devotees of Krishna have no material desires, and therefore they are in perfect peace. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. So I always wondered about this verse, because it's a little bit confusing in that you have the pure devotee who's compared to the ocean, and we have a perfect example right next door. It's not just the ocean, it's the Pacific Ocean, which means that it's always peaceful, right? And you can, I'm sure there's about more than 100 rivers that are flowing into the Pacific Ocean, and it remains Pacific. So that's the analogy. It's a good analogy, obviously, perfect analogy, Krishna's analogy. But the question I have is about the word karma, because we have so many examples in previous verses. This famous verse that was quoted in one purport regarding Yamunacharya. Yamunacharya, I learned this within the last year when Vijay told the story of Yamunacharya in one of his classes. And that is that he was a very precocious young devotional scholar. And he was living in this kingdom, and the king had a court pundit who was, like all the pundits, you know, the materialistic pundits, they like to defeat others in argument. In fact, Lord Chaitanya had a famous interaction with one pundit called Keshava Kashmiri. His name was Keshava, and he had come from Kashmir, from present-day Afghanistan, which is once part of India, greater Bharat. So he was a conqueror. He would conquer, you know, go around. This was a big thing at that time, and especially in Navadvip, because it was the center of learning. And so a lot of the pundits, the arguers, they would come to Navadvip and challenge everyone to a debate, you know. And they would have contests, and they would, you know, they would conquer, and then they would get a certificate. Oh yes, I was defeated by so and so, you know. So he heard about Lord Chaitanya, Nimai, pundit. He was a pundit. He had his own school. He himself was, I don't know, 18 years old, but he had his own school because he was so brilliant, you know. So he wanted to debate him. And Lord Chaitanya, he did debate him. He didn't go out of his way to find him, but he was standing, I think, on the bank of the Ganges with his students, and he came along in an entourage, you know, and challenged him to a debate. Said, "Well, I'm just a simple student. What do I know? I just know some Sanskrit grammar, you know. But if you're a pundit, you know, why don't you compose some verses about the Ganges, which is right here?" They would do that. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya did that. Just right, you know, out of inspiration, when he surrendered to Lord Chaitanya, he composed 100 verses in Sanskrit. It's inconceivable. I mean, I try to compose these verses in English. I have to go back, change a word, look up in the dictionary, you know, and they're just coming out, you know. So this pundit, Keshava Kashmiri, he accepted the challenge. He composed 100 verses about the Ganges, like the wind, which is pretty amazing. So Lord Chaitanya said, "Oh, very nice, very nice." But there's this one verse, and I memorized this verse while you were chanting it. So that in itself, so you know, you might put, can you imagine? We have trouble memorizing after repeating and repeating and repeating. So I just heard it, remember it. And I'd like you to give explain the good qualities and the faults in this verse. And so this Keshava said, "What faults? There's no faults in this verse." And so Lord Chaitanya pointed out a few. One of them I remember was, I forget the Sanskrit, but there's a word, say Bhavani or something, which means the wife of Lord Shiva. But he had said Bhavani, and then he had some more words explaining Shiva's wife, which was redundant because it's like saying Lakshmi, Narayan's consort, you know. Well, for anyone who knows Lakshmi, that's the only, you know, there aren't other Lakshmis married to others. There's all the Lakshmis that have Narayan as a consort. So it's redundant. So that was one mistake, and there was some other technical mistakes about, I forget what it was. So the pundit was just like flabbergasted. First that Lord Chaitanya could memorize it, and then he pointed out the faults and everything. So he lost the debate. And actually, what happened was that, you know, Mother Saraswati had deserted him. This is what happened because she's a servant of Krishna, and Lord Chaitanya is Krishna. So he felt that he had, lost the favor of the goddess of learning. So he recognized, oh, this is special. This is not your ordinary debate partner here. And I think he surrendered to Lord Chaitanya at that time. Oh, came in a dream, was it? And okay, yeah. So anyway, that's the thing. So back to the verse. So apuyamanamatala pratistam. So a person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that entered like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. So my understanding is that, for instance, this verse by Yamunacharya, where he says, ever since I've been relishing ever new mellows in serving the lotus feet of the son of Nanda, it says, Yadavadi mamacheta Krishna pada ravinde navanamada sadhama nyudatam rantamasi. Said, ever since I've been relishing these new mellows, then tadavadi badanadi sangame smaryamani bhavati mukhavakara sisthanishtivan. That whenever I happen to recall some of my liaisons with my harem when I was a king, you know, he was a great scholar, then he defeated the court pundit, got half the kingdom, and then he ruled as a king for some time, until one of his old ashram partners came and visited him and said, oh, Prabhu, I haven't seen you so long, nice to see you. And so the friend said, let's go for a walk in one of your gardens, you know. So he had, okay, let's go, you know. So when they went for a walk, then he started reminding him of all these wonderful verses that he knew back in the ashram. And Yamunacharya was getting more and more enlivened, you know. And they just kept walking. He left the kingdom, left everything. And went back, and then he became Yamunacharya, who was the spiritual master of Ramanujacharya, who's like, you know, these are all titans, you know, intellectual titans, bhakti titans. So anyway, so the point of that verse is that the desires aren't there. It's not that you say, oh, now I've got the desire, but I can, you know, refuse it. the desires are no longer there. That's the perfect vairagya. Vairagya doesn't just mean that you can tolerate the desires and not act on them. It means that the desires themselves are gone. That's real vairagya. It's explained in text 59 of this verse, of this chapter. So anyway, but this says the desires are there, and in the purport, Prabhupada talks about that. As long as one has material body, the demands of the body and sense credit will continue. The devotee, however, is not disturbed by such desires because of his fullness. So then he says, Krishna conscious man is not in need of anything because the Lord fulfills all his material necessities. So anyway, what this verse means, as in my understanding, is that the perfectly Krishna conscious person is full in himself. Prabhupada uses that phrase. It means that he's enjoying the pleasure within being Krishna conscious. Just like our great Goswamis, you know. They had this, I think it's the fourth verse in that song, Tyaktva turna mashesha mandalapati shening sadat tuchavat budva dina ganeshako karunayako pina kantashito. So what that means is that they gave it up, Tyaktva, immediately. Rupa Goswami was the, I think, finance minister, and Sanatan was the prime minister of the king. They had these exalted positions, but the king was a Muslim, and they had been Vaishnavas and Hindus. And so they were actually coerced into becoming the right and left hand of the king because they were so brilliant and competent, you know. So they did that, but then when Lord Chaitanya came, he ordered them to give it all up and go to Vrindavan, and they did. And Sanatan was arrested for that because he was so valuable to the king, he wouldn't let him quit. And Rupa Goswami, they had cashed everything out. They had a big boat of gold. You can imagine how much that was worth today. Billions, you know. So Rupa Goswami, you know, he gave half of it for the service of the Brahmins and the Vaishnavas. He gave a quarter of it for his relatives, who Prabhupada says on the tape, they expect something, so you don't want to freeze them out. But a quarter of it, which is a lot, he kept for an emergency. And get this, how did he keep it? Not in the bank vault, but he kept it with a trustworthy grocer. Wow, you know, trustworthy. Can you hold on to these $6 billion for me while you... Anyway, so then he went to Vrindavan. And Sanatan had access to that money, you know. So he used it to bribe the jailkeeper to let him out, you know. And he also went to Vrindavan. So this verse describes that. Now the third one is not mentioned, is not so obvious, but the third one who was very, very wealthy was Raghunath Das Goswami. And he became the emblem of renunciation. You know, his parents didn't want to let him leave. He was the only son. Big zamindar means landholders. You know, he was the only son, only child of the parents. He's going to inherit everything. But he had no desire. He had met Lord Nityananda, the famous Panihati festival. There's a festival of chipped rice and yogurt. That Lord Nityananda said, he knew that he had some Lakshmi, so he said, okay, you arrange a festival where everybody can have chipped rice and yogurt. And then invite all the Brahmins, you know, so hundreds, they all came, they found out, and he paid out so much to prepare it, you know. So he got the mercy of Lord Nityananda, and by that mercy, he was able to escape from his house, because they had guards, you know. They had a beautiful wife, and he was, you know, he had whatever he wanted, but he wasn't interested anymore. It wasn't like the desires were coming in and he was, you know, clenching his fist. He didn't want any of it. He just wanted to go to be with Lord Chaitanya and attain Prema Bhakti. So anyway, he lied to his spiritual master. He had already had an initiated spiritual master, Yadanandana Acharya, who was a great Vaishnava. But he said he was going to do some puja, but he actually ran away from home. He was able to get out. And then for days he walked to Orissa, to Jagannath Puri, and he hardly ate or anything, you know. And then when he arrived, Lord Chaitanya, he welcomed him there, and he put him in charge, under the charge of Swarup Damodar, to take training. And it said that Raghunath Das was so deferential, he never spoke directly to Lord Chaitanya. He would always speak to Swarup Damodar and everything, you know. So he became the acharya for renunciation. So it's described in this EC. At first, you know, how is he going to keep body and soul together? You have to have some food, right? So it's sannyasi. So he started, I think, begging. Oh yeah, he would wait at the gate of Jagannath temple, because there's so much prasadam they make, and so they would give it out, and he would get some of that. But then after that, he thought that was too easy, so he started just waiting and asking some of the Brahmins who left to give something. Then after a while, and then Lord Chaitanya says, but I don't see Raghunath Das anymore. What is he doing? He said he didn't feel like doing that. He felt like a prostitute, because he was saying, yeah, this he gave me yesterday, I'll go for him. He didn't give me more, like that. So forget that. So he started just eating taking because they make so much prasadam that some of it is not distributed. So there's rice that's left over, and it goes bad, So they throw it into the fields, and maybe if it's really rotten, even the cows won't eat it. So he took that rice, washed it thoroughly, cleaned it up. That was what he was eating. So he's eating that at home, and Lord Chaitanya heard that. He went to his home, and he asked him, Raghunath Das, what kind of wonderful prasad are you eating? And so he didn't say anything. He didn't think it was fit for Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya found it and insisted on eating it, to encourage him. So that's the level of Raghunath Das. And then when he went to Vrindavan, every third day he would take a little buttermilk. It was like legendary. He would hardly eat anything. And he had been the wealthiest like that. Now, but it says of these Goswamis that after the first two verses, how they gave up, their positions, took about Ashesha Mandalapati Shreni, means, whole circles of influence and money, and, they were an aristocratic company. Gave it up immediately, without hesitation, as tuchavad, very insignificant. And what did they do? Bhutva dina ganeshako karunaya kopina kantashito. They put on the simplest cloth, little loin cloth and covering, and they took up the role of mendicants, wandering sannyasis, for the sake of the conditioned souls, to show compassion to them, because then they could preach to them and save, And what were they feeling? Because they'd given up all of this wealth and this opulence, and how did they feel inside? It says, Gopi bhavara samratabda lahari kallola magno mahor. Again and again they were diving and enjoying in the ocean of nectar of the gopis' love for Krishna, which is the highest level of bhakti. So they were tasting that every moment. The material desires weren't even considered. They didn't feel anything. So it wasn't that the desires were entering in and they were able to withstand them. The desires weren't there. Now, what I think the kama means, the object of the sense gratification are there, but the desire for them isn't. Just like with another famous one is Haridas Thakur, where in the middle of he had been a Muslim, he converted, and he was just chanting Hare Krishna, and the Muslim didn't like that at all. And so there was this one incident where they were going to execute him by beating, and they kept beating and beating, but he didn't feel anything. He wasn't crying out in pain, he was just chanting Hare Krishna. And they went from one bazaar, one marketplace to another. They would, execute him publicly so that they would scare people. And they went to 22 marketplaces, and the executioners were like scared that he wasn't dying, wasn't even being injured. So he sensed that, and he asked him, "What's your trouble? Because if you don't die, then we're going to be executed." He said, "Oh, no problem." So he went into samadhi, which looks like death. Sometimes, he's just limp and everything. He said, "Oh, great." So, they took him back. What should we do with him? To the Kazi. Should we bury him? He said, No, don't bury him, because it'll become a place of pilgrimage. Throw him into the river. So they threw Haridas's body, what they thought was Haridas's body, he was still alive, into the river, comes out of samadhi, swims across, and keeps chanting. And they told him before, if you can withstand this, you can do whatever you want. So he said, do whatever you want. So Haridas, and then on the other side, so this is tolerating, threats and pain, just like Prahlad, and staying even keeled because you're in samadhi. On the other side, he was tempted. There was another envious Muslim who wanted to make him fall down. So he gathered some prostitutes, says, if you make him fall down, I'll give you a big bonus, So one very attractive young girl said, no problem, I can do. So she goes in the middle of the night, and does her thing. And Haridas understands. He says, yes, I understand you want to be with me, but I have to finish my rounds. I took a vow that I'm going to chant 10 million names this month, and I'm getting there. So just sit, and I should be able to finish soon. And so you chant, and then the sun rises, He says, Great, so she goes back. And the Qazi, the guy says, well, what happened? What happened, And she said, he promised to be with me. You just be patient, Let me be with him one time, and then next time you can come and arrest him, So she goes back the second night, and he's still chanting. And he says, I'm almost done. You just sit and listen. Hare Krishna. So what's she going to do? She starts chanting too. Nothing else to do. So she chants. Done. The sun rises, Great, So by this time, she's realizing somewhat what's going on. The third night, she bows down and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I was, told to try to seduce you." And Hari just says, "I know that foolish guy. What he was doing. I would have left the first night, but I thought that there was a chance to save you. So now." And she was very contrite, and so he said, "Okay, so you give up. Sell everything you got, give it to the Brahmins, and you can take over this kutir. I'm leaving. You can have it, and you just chant, and everything will be fine." And she did, and people would come and give her gifts of, just like we have this bulging little room back here. It must be a tradition this month or something. There's more. They get, they bought like 50 pounds of atta flour. It's loading up. It's like, anyway, it's like that. So they would bring much more than she needed, and she would, she became a famous Vaishnavi. So Haridas showed his detachment, positive and negative. They couldn't make him suffer by beating him, and they couldn't seduce him on that side. He was completely fixed in the chanting of the holy name. So that's what's going on with this advanced Vaishnava who's like an ocean. The desires aren't there. The stimuli, the temptation, the things that would normally tempt someone come by, but he's not tempted. If you're tempted, it means you have some desire that you're able to, control. But at the highest levels of vairagya, you don't have the raga, you don't have the desire. You're completely filled and blissful, just being Krishna conscious, glorifying Krishna, chanting the holy name. That's the level. So that's what he's describing here. And Prabhupada is referring to a famous verse in this purport. And this is spoken by Lord Chaitanya. There was, I think, Sanatana Goswami in his teachings. And he says, Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami Sakali Ashanta. Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Ataeva Shanta. And this is really the meaning of this verse. So, first he names those who are not peaceful. Why are they not peaceful? Because they have unfulfilled desires. So that Bhukti Mukti Siddhi Kami, he divides it all up into three. The first is the ordinary person, 99.99% of it. Bhukti Kami, desires for sensual gratification. It may be subtle, I've got to go to listen to the concert, the Bach concert, or I got to go to listen to some rock concert, or whatever it may be. And all the senses are covered, you eat for certain things, and it's all. So this is Bhukti Kami. But you can never have enough. You're not satiated, And then if you can't get it, then it causes great anxiety and all this stuff. So you can't be peaceful. Then there's those who understand the fallacy and the impossibility of fulfilling these material desires. So their desires is mukti kami. Mukti kami means I'm lusting after liberation from birth and death. It's for me. It's a material desire. The desire to be free from all suffering, Hare Krishna, is also a material desire. That's explained at the beginning of the Bhagavatam by Sridhar Swami's Dharmak Project Dikaitavotra. So that's another kind of material. They're not peaceful either because they can't really be liberated that way. There's no liberation in the Brahman. Merging into the Brahman or into the body it's not satisfying. It's for a devotee, it's like going to hell, because as we've explained before, it's a negative thing. It's like if you break your leg, say in an accident, and you're in the hospital, you're in traction for weeks, So what do you think? Oh God, I wish I can't wait till I get out of the hospital, I can walk again, So finally the day comes, you get released from the hospital. And but that's not your ultimate perfection. Then you try to take up your duties from before, right? In other words, just being free of birth, old age, disease, and death is not the ultimate goal of life. Then what are you going to do with that freedom? So devotees, the kaivalya, which means merging into the Brahman, or even worse, merging into the body of the Lord, is like going to hell. Kaivalyam narakayate. There's no bhakti. For bhakti, there has to be the worshipable Lord with all his beauty and activities and pastimes, and the bhakta, and the exchange of love, of loving, of serving Krishna and feeling his reciprocation. That can be satisfying for eternity. That's what's going on in the spiritual world. But in the Brahman, all that's going on is existing. There's billions and trillions of other living entities there. That's why it's so brilliant. That's what the Brahman is. But nobody is really satisfied there because they're not tasting any kind of rasa. It's just the absence of pain. That's not fulfilling for the soul. So that's why mukti kami, it's mukti, and then there's the yogis. The Ashtanga yogis who meditate and get siddhis. Wouldn't that be something? If you could walk on water, be lighter than the lightest. How about controlling the minds of others, creating a planet? I mean, there's many things you can do. It's more material desire. It's the same material desire, these yogis. It's all me, what I can do. And you have so many examples in the Durvasa Muni, who was, he was a powerful yogi. He was able to create a demoness who was like fire was going to burn Ambarish to ashes because he felt that he should be honored and not this king. He's just the king. Why should everyone honor him? Because he was a great devotee. So there's so many other examples. But, so none of them are peaceful, but Krishna Bhakta, Nishkama Ateva Shanti. The Bhaktas don't want anything for themselves. They don't want anything in the category of gross or subtle sense gratification. What do they want? They want to serve Krishna. They want to be situated in service to God. And that's completely fulfilling. Lord Chaitanya's teaching, Nadanam, Nadanam, Nasundarim, Kapitang va Jagadisha Kamaye, Mama Janmani Janmani Shude Bhavatad Bhaktida Hoitakitui. I don't want wealth and women followers, the fruits of mundane piety, which means going to heaven and whatever. Liberation from this world of limitless anxiety, he doesn't want that either, he says in this verse. What do you want? Wealth and women followers, the fruits of mundane, liberation from this world of limitless anxiety. For me, O Lord, these common goals have not the slightest worth. Let me serve you purely now and in each future birth. That's actually where you can be peaceful and happy for eternity. So that's what this verse is all about. Sashanti mapto in the kamakami. The kamakamis mean those who are trying to fulfill material desires. They can never be peaceful, but the devotees can. All right, we have time for this next verse, and there's a very interesting edit that I'm fighting for. We're on page 135, text 71. Vihaya kaman yaksarvan pumangs charati nikspriha nirmamo narahankara sashanti marigachati. A person who has given up all desires for sense gratification, who lives free from desires, who has given up all sense of proprietorship and is devoid of false ego, he alone can attain real peace. Purport. To become desireless means not to desire anything for sense gratification. In other words, desire for becoming Krishna conscious is actually desirelessness. To understand one's actual position as the eternal servitor of Krishna without falsely claiming this material body to be oneself and without falsely claiming proprietorship over anything in the world is the perfect stage of Krishna consciousness. One who is situated in this perfect stage knows that because Krishna is the proprietor of everything, everything must be used for the satisfaction of Krishna. Arjuna wanted to satisfy his own desires by not fighting. But when he became, that's the sentence. Is that what you have? What do you have there? Read it to me. Yes. Arjuna did not want to fight for his own sense satisfaction. That's what it says, right? Yeah, and that's been there since, what, 1972. And it seemed pretty plain what it means. Arjuna did not want to fight for his own sense satisfaction. But having worked with Prabhupada's English for 50 years, I know that sometimes the tricky English language, what looks like a Prabhupada mean doesn't mean that. And the reason why this caught my attention, because I was trying to fit it into there's a chronology here, because the sentence continues, but when he became fully Krishna conscious, okay, keep reading the sentence to me.
But when he became fully Krishna conscious, he fought because Krishna wanted him to fight.
Okay, so the first part of the sentence, this latest edition has it in there. But I think, to 2021. Which one is that?
Yeah, she has a 2021 version.
Yeah, so you have the change. All right, so I don't know if you have it in all of it. So the point is that the first part of the sentence is describing Arjuna before he became Krishna conscious. When is that? That's Arjuna at the end of chapter 1 and the beginning of chapter 2. Right? He's giving all these arguments why he shouldn't fight. Because he doesn't want to, kill, main thing, I don't want to kill my beloved grandfather figure Bhishma and my beloved teacher Dronacharya. But there's also all these other relatives and friends on the other side who if I win the kingdom, it'll be soaked with the blood of the people I love. So what kind of victory is that? He had all these arguments at the beginning. But nowhere does it say there that he didn't want to fight for his own sense gratification. What the meaning is, and we can go back to text 39 if you're interested, and Prabhupada says in the purport there, Arjuna's proposal not to fight, this is on page 105 in the purport about 4 lines down, Arjuna's proposal not to fight was based on sense gratification. You see that? That's what Prabhupada is saying here. So when he said Arjuna did not want to fight for his own sense satisfaction, you have to break that into two. Arjuna did not want to fight. Why did he not want to fight? For his own sense gratification. That's exactly what Prabhupada says. Arjuna's proposal not to fight was based on sense satisfaction. Forgetting his prime duty, he wanted to cease fighting because he thought that by not killing his relatives and kinsmen, he would be happier than by enjoying the kingdom after conquering his cousins and brothers, the sons of Dhritarashtra. In both ways, the principles was for sense gratification. So therefore, I changed it to Arjuna wanted to satisfy his own senses by not fighting, because Krishna consciousness means everything must be used for the satisfaction of Krishna. But Arjuna didn't want to do that. So that's the whole point of the Gita. He's convinced by the end of the Gita. He says, yes, I'll do what you say. Now by your mercy, my illusion has been destroyed. Now I'm back, in my natural. So here, Arjuna wanted to satisfy his own senses by not fighting. But I'm having, we have a board to decide on these things, whether it's correct or not, so on. We have to go to mediation, and I don't know if I'll be able to win the argument, but I'm telling you, if you think about it, that's what it means. All right, we'll continue. Arjuna wanted to satisfy his own senses by not fighting, but when he became fully Krishna conscious, he fought because Krishna wanted him to fight. For himself, there was no desire to fight, but for Krishna, the same Arjuna fought to his best ability. Real desirelessness is desire for the satisfaction of Krishna, not an artificial attempt to abolish desires. The living entity cannot be desireless or senseless, but he does have to change the quality of the desires. A materially desireless person certainly knows that everything belongs to Krishna. Isha vasyamidam sarvam. It's from the Isha Upanishad, first mantra. And therefore, he does not falsely claim proprietorship over anything. This transcendental knowledge is based on self-realization, namely, knowing perfectly well that every living entity is an eternal part and parcel of Krishna in spiritual identity, and that the eternal position of the living entity is therefore never on the level of Krishna or greater than him. This understanding of Krishna consciousness is the basic principle of real peace. So there's quite a few verses here that we've read about being at peace. And if you recall, after that, those 2 verses describing the degradation of the soul, 62 and 63, how by contemplating the objects of the senses, you become attached to them. right? We all experience that. That's what it means to be a human being, conditioned human being. On page 128 at the bottom, that's the Sanskrit. English, while contemplating the objects of the senses, the person develops attachment for them. That makes perfect sense. And from such attachment, lust develops. If you get, the attachment becomes stronger and stronger, and lust here means a very strong desire to enjoy. And from the lust, anger arises. Well, when you can't fulfill the lusty desires, then you become angry. And that eventually happens. It must happen in the material world. Now what happens then? These two verses go together. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. From anger, complete delusion arises. This is now in the translation is 63. And from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. So the intelligence is the distinguishing factor of the human being. This is why human life is so important, because it's the only juncture in all those 8,400,000 species of life. You know, you see so many insects running around and so much flora, so many different species of plants and trees and everything. Each one of those, you know, blades of grass is another spirit soul there. Just like some anthill, you know, every little ant is its own little super soul in there. Tell them, go here, the sugar's over there. We were there. We were there. We've come up. She's heard this verse about 40 times. Oh, spirit soul, you have attained the human form of life after many, many births, coming up, automatically. And manusham, the human form, man, you hear the word, manusham artadam. And in this human form, you can finally achieve the goal of the soul. It's called sva-arta, or in this verse, artadam. It gives the opportunity to achieve the final goal of life. Krishna prema, which includes mukti, ending our sojourn in the material world. That's the ultimate goal. But like all forms, it's temporary. The clock is ticking. You only have a certain amount of minutes and seconds and months and years left in the body. Therefore, turnam. Turnam means immediately, without wasting time. Yateta, strive. Yateta, as long as you're still alive, for the nikshayasa, the ultimate good, which is very simple. Freedom from all these material desires, return to the spiritual world, and resume our life of loving devotional service to Krishna in our specific rasa, our specific role. That's all called our siddha swarup, or our swarup siddhi. So we all have that, but we've forgotten it for billions of births. So how to strive? That's the process of bhakti. And it means this purification of desire. That's like that in a nutshell. And when our desires are completely absorbed in material things, both gross and subtle, you know, for gratification, plus getting away from danger, this flip side, which is part of being conditioned, then we're stuck here. We're going to get another birth to try to fulfill those desires, and we have to pay for our sins and, you know, the good things we did. But you have to get that back also. Another birth, you know, and another death. Don't we want to end that? You know, that's the basic thing. So the only way to do that is becoming desireless, means desiring nothing for sense gratification, everything for Krishna. And that's why you see the great devotees, they're so fixed in service, incredible services like Srila Prabhupada showed, the spiritual master. You know, great determination to stay in that service and try to please Krishna, even though it's dangerous, even though your health is failing, even though who knows what. You know, that's real bhakti, where you're ready to sacrifice everything for the pleasure of Krishna and his devotees. So that's as Prabhupada makes clear in this wonderful purport. That's where real desirelessness. That's what we're looking for, and that's why some of the terms we have, the English terms, are a little misleading. Ahoituki, right? The ahoituki bhakti, right? Unmotivated. But it's got to be motivated. It's the material motivation that can't be there. The motivation has to be simply to please Krishna out of love, you know, and his devotees. That's a strong motivation, but it's not a material motivation. It's not based on our own gratification. It's based on Krishna's pleasure and the pleasure of his devotees, and somehow it's, you know, trying to help save some of these poor souls who don't know anything about Krishna, because that's the only hope. That's Prahlad's mood. I share that. So that's what desire has to be there, but that desire, when it's purified, is a great asset in Krishna consciousness. In fact, there's one verse, I'll end with this. Oh boy, it's getting late. Krishna bhakti rasa bhavitamati kriyatam hidikatopi labhyate. Krishna bhakti rasa bhavitamati, or in other words, Krishna consciousness. This is what the phrase that became the phrase, Krishna consciousness. Krishna bhakti rasa means the exchange of loving devotion with Krishna. Bhavitamati, the mind absorbed in Krishna bhakti rasa at every moment. If you can buy that, you should buy it wherever you can. But what's the price? Your greed for it, your ardent desire for that. Because now our desires are splayed out. We have some material desires and spiritual desires. So, tatra laulyam. Laulyam means greed. Tatra laulyam api mulyam, price. Ekalam janmakoti sukutainala. You can, millions of lifetimes of pious activities will not do it. Material piety. It has to be bhakti. I'm sorry, I kind of went off on a speech. I didn't want to harangue you. But one poem. It's like a sweet at the end of the... Let's see. Yeah, I was thinking of this one, which kind of... He says, this was taught to me in the Padma Purana. We say sometimes the Padma Purana and we're not sure where it comes from because it's so vast. It's in there. I know it's in there somewhere. Anyway, it's good Sanskrit. Dehishtimang surudire bimatam cha jasva jaya sutari shasadama matam vimuncha pushyanisham jagaditam chanabongatishtam vairagya raga dasiko bhava bhakti nishtam. Don't love the body, just a bag of flesh and blood and bone. That's the first line, I swear. Don't love the body, just a bag of flesh and blood and bone. Give up your sense of ownership for wife and kids at home. At every moment, see that your world totters on destruction, or at every moment, see that this world totters on destruction. Become detached and learn to love the Lord without obstruction. And that immortal line, I don't really do justice to it with my little poem. Vairagya raga. Become attached to detachment. Vairagya raga. And the only way to do it is to become a rasika, like we have our little rasika sindhu here. Rasika means someone who can taste the rasa of bhakti. Right at the beginning of Bhagavatam. Nagamakalpatadogalitam palam shikumakadamita dravasamyitam babata Bhagavatam rasamalayam the whole rasika bhuvi bhavuka. Bhagavatam is full of this wonderful poetry, so after giving two really heavy philosophical verses at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, what's the subject of it? Krishna, the source of everything, the first verse describing. Second verse, Bhagavatam, kick out all cheating religions. You know, you have to be free of envy if you really want to stand it. It was written by Vyasadeva's maturity. And if you study it, you hear it with ardent hearing, then Krishna will manifest in your heart. What do you need any other scripture? So that's the first two verses. Then the third one is a real nectar verse. This Bhagavatam is the ripened fruit of all the Vedic, of the tree of Vedic literatures. It was spoken by Shuka, who became very sweet and relishable, all the poetry. Amrita dravasamyitam, and it's like a ripe mango. You need to drink the juice. So he said, drink it. Pibata Bhagavatam. Drink this Bhagavatam. Oh, learned sages. Rasamalayam, which is full of rasa. Muhoraho, again and again. And become rasikas, become those who are able to taste and drink the nectar of devotion. So that's what we should try to aspire for. That should be our motivation. So it's not unmotivated, but the motivation has to be pure. And now we'll adjourn because we're late. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.